obstacle course became more difficult to conquer the closer one came to the finish line. In Georgia, for example, Stacey Abrams needed to surmount the massive warped wall put in place by Brian Kemp, Georgia's Secretary of State, and, not coincidentally, her Republican opponent. Just weeks ahead of the election, Kemp suspended the registration of 53,000 Georgians, predominantly minorities, using an exact match system that struck names from the rolls as fraudulent for something as common and finicky as a missing hyphen. But while one side deployed the electoral equivalent of swinging spikes between American voters and their democracy, citizens stood up and fought back. They took on the deepest structural inequities, the hardest battles that experts said could not be won. They pushed back against gerrymandering in Michigan, Utah, Colorado, and Missouri, some of the most tilted and conservative states in the nation, and won. They fought to restore voting rights to millions of former felons across the South who had served their time and paid their debt, and won. In Zinfandel Red, Idaho, Utah, and Nebraska, where legislatures refused to expand Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act, young people organized petition drives and pushed ballot initiatives and won. Nationwide, voters considered 16 different initiatives and constitutional amendments that would make elections more open and fair. 15 of them, 94%, passed. The winners on election night were all of us. Americans want their democracy back, and they're doing something about it. This is their story. In 2016, my book, Ratf, Why Your Vote Doesn't Count, broke the story of how Republicans weaponized gerrymandering, the oldest political trick in the book, into a precise yet blunt force tool that entrenched GOP power in state legislatures and congressional delegations nationwide, even when the party earned far fewer votes. It revealed a national Republican strategy called REDMAP, short for the Redistricting Majority Project, keyed around dozens of small-town legislative races during the 2010 election. The key to REDMAP's success in 2010 would be found in the U.S. Constitution, which requires that every state legislative and congressional district in the nation be redrawn every 10 years after the census to account for population shifts. In 3/4 of all states, local legislatures draw those lines. Savvy Republicans, led by Chris Jankowski of the Republican State Leadership Committee, had a eureka moment not long after Barack Obama's 2008 victory, as they confronted the reality of America's changing demographics. A nationwide transformation toward a voter profile that was historically more sympathetic to the Democratic Party, and tried to plot a path back to power. Conveniently for Jankowski and his colleagues, the census was coming. This would be their breakthrough. What if Republicans targeted inexpensive down-ballot state legislative races in closely contested states like Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Michigan, Ohio, and Wisconsin, with the goal of claiming every seat at the redistricting table and drawing themselves a decade-long advantage? It worked more effectively than Republicans could have dreamed, in part because Democrats, still celebrating 2008, snoozed while the GOP schemed. Even after Karl Rove revealed the entire playbook in March 2010 on the op-ed page of the Wall Street Journal, Republicans won their wave, and with it, the ability to design a decade of domination. They took full advantage. The availability and easy manipulation of big data by powerful computers armed with sophisticated mapping software made it possible for Republicans to etch themselves a long-lasting edge. In those 5 swing state targets alone, Republicans held 49 of 69 congressional seats by 2016, and Democrats had not flipped a single one all decade. They also held all 10 legislative chambers in those states, some of them with veto-proof supermajorities, even surviving years when Democrats won more votes, including the 2018 wave. After Donald Trump's surprising victory in 2016, I was often asked to explain how Republicans could hold the White House and both branches of Congress, even in years when they received a minority of all votes, and also how, in a